how the 2024 presidential election will be far more competitive, way more closer than the 2020 election was. Now, when it comes to the 2020 election, you probably think that Joe Biden, comfortably won. As we saw Joe Biden back in 2020, won states like Minnesota, Wisconsin. He won every single Rust Belt state. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, even Arizona. Those used to be known as comfortable Republican states. Georgia, another used to be traditional Republican state. He won states like those. Joe Biden won Nevada. So, Joe Biden got around 300 electoral votes. Now, that may seem a lot, but the 2020 election was actually closer. The numbers deceive you. The amount of electoral votes Joe Biden had in the 2020 election is deceiving. It says Joe Biden got around, I believe, 303 or low 300s. Doesn't matter. Around 300 electoral votes. So that is deceiving right there, because if a candidate gets around 300 electoral votes, you would probably think they won in a landslide and they probably obliterated the other candidate. You would think Joe Biden destroyed Donald Trump in 2020. Well, when it comes to electoral votes, it may seem like that, but that's deceiving. Margin of error in each and every swing state that Joe Biden won in 2020, that tells you that it was actually way closer. So I just want to throw out this fact that 2020 was actually closer than what people thought. It looks like Joe Biden won in a landslide, but that's actually not the case when you look at every single state. Now, we're going to talk about 2024 in a little bit and how 2024 will be far more competitive and way closer than 2020 would be. But before we go on to that, I just want to prove to you guys that the 2020 election was closer than what people expect, because you see that Biden got around 300 electoral votes. That looks like a landslide, but it's really not. States that Joe Biden won were very close. He barely pulled off Arizona. That could have easily went to Donald Trump. It was a 50-50 chance. He only won by 0.4%. It's up on your screen right now. This is the proof. Arizona was extremely close. This helped Biden get to around 300 electoral votes. And then same for Georgia. He only won by that 0.3. These are two states that I already named two. Arizona and Georgia were both won with a margin of under 0.5%. Both Arizona and Georgia were won by Biden in 2020 by under half of a percentage point, 0.5%. And then Wisconsin only was won by Biden by around 0.6 percentage points, okay? And then Pennsylvania, 1.2% for Joe Biden. That's extremely, extremely close. Now, as we all know, Joe Biden got 306 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 232. You would probably think Biden won pretty much all the most swing states with comfortable margins. That does not happen to be the case. Obviously, with Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania could have easily went to Donald Trump, just how they all did in 2016. So, the 306 electoral votes that Biden got in 2020 happens to be deceiving. He really, he did win with 306, but guess what? The swing states that he won to help him get to 306 were barely won by him and could easily flipped over to Trump and help Trump to get to 270, which could ultimately be the case in the 2024 election, which we're going to be talking about just now. So, when it comes to let's restart this map. When it comes to the 2024 presidential election, it's going to be way far more competitive than the 2020 election. Now, if you thought the 2020 election was closer, like I just showed to you guys, the 2020 election was way more closer, even though Joe Biden still got 306 electoral votes. That's kind of deceiving, and let me know if you agree with that take. And I don't think Joe Biden will get the same amount of the popular vote. I don't think he will crack 51%, how he did in 2020. In the 2024 election, I do not think Joe Biden will hit 50%. I think it will be high 40s. I do not see Joe Biden getting 81 million votes in 2024. I think most of you guys can agree with that. And so if we already have Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's already going to be close itself. Now, you have third party candidates like RFK Jr. will make it very interesting. RFK Jr. his favorable rating as of November 20 is he's positive 5% above. He's in the positives by 5%. That's RFK Jr. An independent candidate is more favorable than the incumbent president himself. An independent candidate who's never been president, RFK Kennedy Jr. is who I'm talking about, is more favorable than Joe Biden. And not just that, RFK Jr. never has been president, is more favorable than two presidents. Jr. is more favorable than both Trump and Joe Biden. That's two presidents already. And that goes to show you how much, RFK Jr. will impact this race. And you have these far left, far right, not just far left, people far right too. You have these far, too far of their own party, whether it's the Democratic Party or Republican Party, it does not matter. If you are a far leftist or a far right winger, as they call them, you are probably brainwashing people, and people are getting brainwashed into thinking that RFK Jr. is not going to get a lot of votes, and that's completely false. And obviously, that we did not hit the 2024 election yet, but in my opinion, people on the far left and far right are deceiving voters into thinking that RFK Jr. won't get a lot of support. I think he will, more than any independent candidate in history. Well, not in history, but I think he will probably do better than average independent candidates. You take a look at 2016, that independent candidate only got 3%, 5%. Yeah, that's what people think RFK Jr. is going to get. No, I think he will get way more. You take a look at his favorability rating, he's more favorable than the current president and the former president, and he's never been president before, and he's already more favorable than both of them. That goes to show you that I expect RFK Jr. to crack 10%, to crack 15%, and if he gets lucky enough, I hate to say it, but maybe even 20% for RFK Jr., and I might sound delusional, but we will see on Election Day in 2024. So yeah, RFK favorable by 5%. Okay, that's RFK Jr. He's favorable by 5%. Okay, what about the incumbent president, Joe Biden? As of November 20, he's underwater by 14%. 14% in the negatives. And I just went over RFK Jr. He was positive by 5%. Joe Biden's negative by 14%. Okay, former president Donald Trump, as of November 20th, a little bit better than Biden, but still not better than RFK Jr. Underwater by 11%. So if I were to rank Donald Trump and Joe Biden, these three people, Donald Trump, Biden, and RFK Jr., in terms of who has the best favorability rating, Joe Biden is the worst, Donald Trump comes in second, and RFK Jr. is the best at number one and beats both Trump and Donald Trump in terms of favorability rating. And this can ultimately carry on to the outcome of the 2024 election. You add in a factor another third-party candidate, like Joe Manchin, who has shown publicly expressed interest in running in 2024. I think he will. You take a look at his past interviews, all signs indicate he is running in 2024 as an independent. And a lot of Democrats don't like Joe Manchin, and Republicans would already vote for Donald Trump. So I actually think that RFK Jr. will probably be more effective than Joe Manchin would be, but it doesn't matter. You add in a third-party candidate like RFK Jr., you add in another third-party candidate to factor in this race like Joe Manchin. That's already two third-party candidates. This election, the 2024 election, has far more third-party candidates than most elections. 2016 didn't even have as many third-party candidates as 2024 is going to have. Voters will have choices in 2024. If you think you just have two choices between Biden and Trump, you are wrong. You have choices like RFK Jr., Cornel West, which I think will not be effective. I think RFK Jr. will be will get way more votes than Cornel West. That's why I'm factoring RFK Jr. And we're not talking about Cornel West in this video. And then Joe Manchin. Let's say he runs, because I think he will, and I think a lot of you guys, he probably will run. Let's say that. Joe Manchin, RFK Jr. RFK Jr. himself is already a big factor. You add in Joe Manchin to the race, they will split a lot of votes. RFK Jr. and Joe Manchin will take votes away from both Trump and Biden. You have people on the right saying RFK Jr. will take away votes from Biden. Guess what? They're right. You have people on the left saying RFK Jr. will take votes away from Trump. They're right too. They're both right. I think RFK Jr. will take away votes from Biden and Trump both equally, and same goes for Joe Manchin. I don't think it's gonna, on a scale, it's not gonna weigh more. It's not gonna weigh to take more support from Trump or take more support from Biden. I think it will be equal. And this election, I think, will be very interesting to see the results, because you have so many options for president. You have so many third-party candidates. And if you ask an average voter how they view the 2024 election, they view it as two old men wanting to win. And that's what it is. But then you have Joe Manchin. You have third-party candidates like RFK Jr. And it's options for voters, and it will, it will impact the race. It really will. And this is why the 2024 election will be way more competitive than 2020. I named a whole list of things. Number one, you have way more options as third-party candidates that voters really, I know a lot of voters that would vote for RFK Jr. They've said they would vote for him. Maybe not so much as Joe Manchin, but definitely RFK Jr. I think Joe Manchin will still get some support, but probably less than RFK Jr. I think RFK Jr. would be a little bit, would get more votes, but still, it doesn't matter. Both Manchin and RFK Jr. will be very effective. The 2020 election, as I just stated earlier, was close. And with that being said, if the 2020 election was close, you have the exact same candidates going at it again in 2024, Biden and Trump. So when you had Biden barely beat Trump in the 2020 election, which, like I just said, 306 electoral votes, looks like Biden destroyed Trump. That's deceiving. Yeah, it was closer. It was definitely closer. So I don't think Joe Biden did not win in a landslide. No, he did not. He barely won the 2024 election. Let's be truthful with ourselves. Let's be for real. Let's state the facts. Joe Biden barely beat Trump in 2020. Whether you're on the left and you disagree with me, that's the truth. Joe Biden barely beat Donald Trump in 2020. He did not destroy him. That is not true. You take a look at the margins of error. Trump easily could have won Arizona. Could have won Georgia. In fact, I think he probably will in 2024. Let's say Georgia goes to Donald Trump by a lean margin. That's going to help him. That's one flip for Donald Trump. And then maybe he could win Wisconsin. Maybe he can pull off Arizona. Those three states that I just named, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, all three of those states actually were won by Donald Trump in 2016. So it's on his resume. He can definitely do it. And those three states, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, were narrowly won by Biden. And Biden could have easily lost those states to Donald Trump in 2020. And that's just the facts. Wisconsin, 0.6 Biden. Georgia, 0.3 Biden. Arizona, 0.4 Biden. That's extremely, extremely close. Joe Biden did not destroy Donald Trump. These states, obviously Donald Trump is going to win Texas. Now the margin, some people made that, now the margin differs between people's opinion. Obviously Trump's going to win Texas, but by how much? Is it going to be a lean margin, or is it going to be a comfortable, likely margin? I think it's going to be a lean margin. I still think Texas will vote to the right of Donald Trump. The margin, I think around 6%. Let me know if you agree with that 6% for Donald Trump in Texas for 2024. And I also do think Trump will win states such as like North Carolina. Whether it's a tilt or lean margin, doesn't matter. He's still going to win it. Now, you may disagree with me having it as a lean margin for Trump, but if you still have it as tilt, North Carolina tilt red for Donald Trump, doesn't matter. Trump still wins it. I think I don't think Joe Biden wins more in 2024, wins by more than he did in 2020. I don't see any scenario, not a single scenario, do I see the 2024 election Biden winning it by more than he did in 2020. That's not going to be the case. Whether you agree or disagree, Joe Biden, hear me out, will not win 2024 by more votes, or doesn't even matter, more votes, not even a popular vote. He won't get more electoral votes than he did in 2020. I do not see Biden in 2024 surpassing his margins in 2020. I do not see Biden getting more than 306 electoral votes in the 2024 election. That's not going to happen. Like I said like I mentioned earlier in this video, I do not see Biden cracking 50%. I just don't see it. He is unpopular, extremely unpopular. You have these two unpopular candidates, and keep in mind, Donald Trump got 10 million more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. So Donald Trump won in 2016, but he lost in 2020. Well, guess what? He actually got more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. That's how weird the election was. And that's just the truth. Trump did better in 2020, even though he lost, than he did in 2016. I do think Joe Biden will pull off Nevada. I think it's definitely up for grabs. It's definitely up for the table for Donald Trump to win pull off a state like Nevada, but I just don't think so. I think Biden can narrowly win Nevada. He did it in 2020 by around a little bit over 2%. So I do think Joe Biden will still carry at the end of the day Nevada, but that does not get Biden to 270. I do think Biden will pull off Michigan. I think Gretchen Whitmer can carry him. I do think the voters that voted for Gretchen Whitmer back in the 2022 midterms will end up voting for Biden. I think Gretchen Whitmer, she won by double digits. She improved, and she did very good. So I think Gretchen Whitmer, if she endorses Biden, she will carry him. As far as Pennsylvania goes, I see this as 50-50, honestly. Pennsylvania was only won by Biden by 1.2%. That's extremely close. But I'm going to narrowly give it to Biden by a tilt margin. Very close. So Biden's already at 262. So that's how close Biden's about to get to 270. And then let's say New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire will go to Joe Biden by a lean margin, maybe 5%. I think Biden will carry New Hampshire by 5% in 2024. That's already 266 electoral votes for Joe Biden. Okay, and now here's when I think this is when things get a little scary close, nail-biting type of close. We're down to two states, Wisconsin and Arizona. Joe Biden's already at 266. Wisconsin and Arizona, I think, will be the deciding factor on who actually wins in 2024. Arizona, Biden narrowly won it, 0.4%, less than the percentage point. And Arizona is a state that is trending towards the left. They keep gaining Democratic voters, and in the future, Arizona is soon to be a Democratic state. It was once a red state, now it's shifting to be a blue state because you have people moving from California into Arizona and trending the state blue. Obviously, California is a Democratic state, so you have these Californians moving down south to Arizona, which will help the state flip blue, which is ultimately what happened in 2020. You have these Californians moving down south because they can't afford the state, it's too expensive, and they help the state go blue. So that's one of the main reasons why Arizona is trending blue, is because you have these Californians moving down and helping the state trend blue. But I still think Trump pulls off Arizona. Now, I definitely can see Biden winning Arizona. As you take a look at my past predictions, my past 2024 predictions actually have had Joe Biden. But I recently just switched to Donald Trump winning Arizona. Because Joe Biden is just doing poorly, and there are polls suggesting that Joe Biden is doing terrible among Gen Z voters, which I don't really know if I'm going to trust that, because obviously polls don't vote, but voters do vote. So, with that being said, Trump 262, Biden 266. By the way, I don't think RFK Jr. will win a single state. If he does, it will probably be Arizona, because as we all know, Arizona is the number one state with the most independent voters. Independent voters make up a huge voting group in the state of Arizona. So if RFK Jr. or an independent candidate or a third-party candidate had to win one state, that one state I would think would be Arizona out of all 50. If an independent candidate had to win one state in 2024 election, I would say that state would be Arizona. But I just don't think an independent candidate or a third-party candidate like RFK Jr. or Joe Manchin will win a single state at all. I just don't think so. And then, okay, very close. Wisconsin is the deciding factor, as we all know. But with this map filled out, with the map I have filled out, Wisconsin is, in fact, whoever wins Wisconsin at the end of the day will win the election. If Trump wins Wisconsin, he wins the election. If Biden wins Wisconsin, he wins the election. I think Wisconsin goes to Donald Trump in 2024. It was only won by Biden by 0.6%. Extremely close. Definitely winnable for Donald Trump. It's on his resume. He did it in 2016. And considering Joe Biden being so terrible in terms of... When I say terrible, it's not my opinion. It's what his favorability is showing. It's what the approval rating is showing. And when I talk bad about Joe Biden, it's not my opinion. It's what's actually happening. So this is the map. 2024, 272. This is why I think 2024 will be far more competitive than the 2020 election would be. Way more closer. And you will hear a lot of nail biting. 272 electoral votes for Donald Trump. That's extremely close. One of the closest elections in American history will be the 2024 elections. If you have the top 10 closest elections, presidential elections in American history, the top 10, you can add the 2024 election to that list. I think 2024 will be one of the closest, one of the most competitive elections. Similar to Bush and Al Gore, but maybe not a tie, obviously. I don't think 2024 will end in a tie. That's extremely unlikely. But yeah, Joe Biden narrowly loses and Donald Trump barely wins at this point. So the winner is barely going to win and the loser is barely going to lose. That's one way to sum up the 2024 election. Biden barely loses at 266 electoral votes, or Donald Trump barely wins with 272 electoral votes, barely hitting 270 at 272. So there you guys go. This is where I'm at with the 2024 election. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the third-party candidates. Let me know your thoughts and opinions basically on this map. What states you agree with, what states you disagree with in the comment section down below. And don't forget to subscribe as we are approaching 700 subscribers.